Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitworth. On today's episode, I have, dare I say, one of the godfathers of the health coaching industry, Reed Davis. Reed Davis, board-certified holistic health practitioner and certified nutritional therapist, is an expert in functional lab testing and holistic lifestyle medicine. He's the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, also known as FDN, and the FDN certification course with over 4,000 graduates in 50 countries. Reed served as the health director of a wellness center in Southern California for over 10 years, and with over 10,000 clients is known as one of the most experienced clinicians in the world. Reed serves on the advisory board of the American Natural Wellness Coaches Board and the American Association of Natural Wellness Coaches. He lives in the U.S., and when not teaching the FDN certification course and helping his graduates build their private practices, he is usually found gardening or riding one of his motorcycles. I've definitely admired FDN from a distance for many years now, so this was a really fun conversation to have. We dig into Reed's backstory, which didn't start in nutrition or medicine. We talk about how and why FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, came to be, what makes it unique, and their specific testing protocols to find healing opportunities. Reed and I go deep into his protocol DRESS, D-R-E-S-S. We talk blood work, metabolic typing, how health coaches fit into the medical system, and a whole lot more. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Reed Davis, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Oh, Trevor, thanks so much for having me here. Pleasure.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you. And before we get into like some of your history, I want to know what's your favorite place that you've ever ridden your bike through?
Oh man, up in the Black Hills of South Dakota, there's some very sacred land up there that's just amazing. I mean, I live in the hills of mountains of Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
I have deserts, beautiful places. Everywhere I ride is wonderful. It's like Disneyland. But up there, it was really something special. And then, of course, you end up at Custer National Park. You're going through buffalo herds. The Mount Rushmore's up there too, which is pretty cool. And then Sturgis, where there's 500,000 motorcycles during the rally there.
Right.
So I mean, I would have to give that as my final answer.
Do you get up to Sturgis?
South Dakota.
Do you like going to Sturgis, or is that not? Yeah.
Yeah, been a few times.
Okay. So I'm in Minnesota, so we can always tell when it's motorcycle time when Sturgis is going on because all of the highways are full of people riding out there.
It's pretty amazing. It's such a small town, and for such a small town, I think that's how they thrive. They don't just have the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally; they have other rallies and car shows and different things throughout the year. So they pack it in during the summer months, of course. But one of the years I was there was 750,000 motorcycles there. That's a small city, I mean, right. It's a big city. That's right. Huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's get into it. So most of people know you as kind of the founder of FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, but I mean that's not. I mean, FDN is the culmination of a long history. And so, I mean, let's kind of go back because I know you weren't even in the health industry right away. What was your kind of first profession?
I've had some careers. It's 3 or 4. This is the final mile for me, though. I've completely dedicated myself to helping other people in what we do. But just prior, say for years prior, I was actually an environmental paralegal and conservationist. I was saving the planet. Air birds, water trees, bees. People have heard that story before too, And so right before the turn of the century, I'm out there, seeing dead birds and, bodies of water and things. And I started wondering, what's it doing to people? What's this? God, look at all this dead stuff. What about us? What's the effect it's having on humans, and including me? I was in great shape, but I actually had never been to a doctor other than for some dental work and some sports injuries. And and so I didn't know how bad that system was. But I just turned my attention to people. I didn't want anything sneaking up on me, and I had studied some nutrition and healing, self healing, just kind of as a hobby. Anyway, I changed jobs. I went to work clinic where they soon made me the health director and case manager. I just have a way with people and communication and lining things up. I'm a very good organizer. I can research pretty difficult material and come up with easy ways to explain it. So I moved up in that company really fast, and the owner the owner was just starting her diplomat program. She was a physician who wanted to study more about nutrition, and she said, "Trevor," she said, "Reed, um, you can go with me. You'll get your uh, nutritional therapist certificate, and you can work on my patients in between classes, which is a phenomenal opportunity." And she said, "All you have to do is your homework and mine, and we'll we'll go through this thing." So I did double homework as I went through this nutrition therapy course, and I just changed my life. I started working directly one on one with the patients.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been kind of building business and helping them get organized. Did some hiring and things for them, but when I started meeting with Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones face to face, who have all these problems, it just completely changed my life. I fell in love with the clinical side, and I did that for the next 10 years straight.
Okay. So you are kind of meeting with people on a regular basis.
I was, and I was just completely aghast, frustrated, like the patients were. Everybody coming in our office had a chronic downward spiraling condition, and they were getting absolutely no help from conventional medicine.
Okay.
They're being put on drugs and told, or they were told nothing's wrong with you. And I know people in your audience are familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Your blood work looks normal. So what does that mean? Is it all in their heads? They just need to take some kind of chill pill or something. So again, people were coming, all walks, mostly women, but all sorts of them were coming in the office and frustrated, sometimes desperate, really suffering with all the common chronic ailments that you still see today. But they were seeking something alternative, and it's actually pretty amazing how alternative medicine back then, late 20th century, has went through its changes. It became, complementary and then integrative. And
Mm-hmm.
today, thankfully, we have functional medicine. But I started in the trenches and recognized right away. I coined it at the time the cycle of trial and error. Everyone had been to 6 or 8 or 10 different people. And one day I was out riding my motorcycle and enjoying my freedom and good health and all kinds of good things. And I thought about the people back at the office, and I just said, "This sucks. This has to end." I mean, what a freaking ripoff! What do you mean you've been to 8 people and you're not better yet?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are people? And they'd spend all this money. And so, as naive as it sounds, I had no medical background or training. I obviously was a good reader and researcher, but um, I said, "I'm going to be the last person you need to see. I'll be the last person. I'm not going to be number 9 out of 12 or number, 10 out of 20 people. I just don't want to be the next guy that you see and try something that didn't work." And so
Mm-hmm.
I lined myself up with some really smart people and laboratories and some doctors, and I went to work. I started running labs, and I could say the rest is history, but I'd love to tell you more if that sounds like a good direction
Yeah.
to go in.
Yeah. I think learning more about that, because I mean, you're coming at this without, a medical background. You've probably done a bunch of reading and researching yourself, but not a formal medical background. And to go and tell someone that, hey, I'm going to be the last person that you need to see, like that's maybe putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
It was. looking back, it was very naive, but I had already accomplished some pretty good things in my life. I had been out in the public and in business and in corporate work, doing some amazing things in the conservation field,
Mm-hmm.
and so I knew I could do just about anything. I mean, that law program I took, uh, I I hadn't been to school in 20 years when I took that program, and I aced it. I had sort of got my learn on and got back to that kind of a thing. So anyway, I went to work, and Trevor, get my training in nutrition that I was taking was helping,
Mm-hmm.
but not very much.
Right.
I took a lot of other certification programs. I probably have a dozen easily over the next couple of years. None of it helped as much as running labs. And it was just fortunate. I just stroke of not genius, luck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I knew people that a guy who had started his own lab, Dr. Bill Timmons, was a great mentor of mine. One day, this doctor walks in the office looking to rent space from us to have his practice. He turned out to be a genius. I mean, he used to be a rocket scientist
Okay.
type of guy. When you say it's not rocket science, well, that's what I used to do. He said,
Right.
told me, and and so he became a mentor. And the chiropractors I worked with too, where I learned a lot from going to their seminars and things. I was just working every day, working really hard, but running the labs, getting the patients. Remember, they've been suffering and were frustrated, and no one, maybe they got some blood work done and it looked normal, or even if it looked normal, and then here's a chill pill.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with you yet. Wait till it gets worse, and then we can diagnose and treat you. Doctors were saying. Or there might have been one thing on that lab test, and the doctor zeroed in. Oh, look, here's something I can treat. I can diagnose and treat, like a thyroid or something along those lines. And that wasn't helping them either. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
thyroid problem, it's probably nothing wrong with your thyroid. It's all this other stuff going on. I didn't know this back then, but I started running labs and labs and thousands of labs with thousands of people. And I started to recognize some patterns. And so it's those patterns that I recognize. And remember, 10 years, thousands of their patients and who became my clients eventually. And then I was out lecturing and um, getting more and more, meeting more and more new people, speaking on all of these things that they were suffering from. And the sheer volume of work. And I don't want to brag, but after a few years, a lab director called me up, said, "Who the hell are you? And how many doctors work there?" And
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, there's doctors, but I'm the only one using your lab right now." He says, "Well, how are you doing this? You're running more labs than this famous doctor who has 5 doctors working for him. So how are you by yourself running that many labs?" And I just said, "I don't know, because I like it. I'm very, aggressive. I go out, I lecture, I get new ones, and I say, here's our program. We run labs."
Mm-hmm.
And it was my program developing. It turned into FDN. I didn't know what to call it at first. I was just a nutritionist who was running labs and helping people at the so-called causal level.
How,
So again, the patterns I recognized became our current investigative
right.
step-by-step process.
So how did you come about that labs were going to be the answer to, some of the things that were going on? Was it just through study, through listening to other people?
No, I'll tell you. First of all, I love science. I love getting into the weeds sometimes of
Mm-hmm.
the nitty gritty and learning. I'm addicted to learning. And so I was actually at a chiropractic seminar. We used to go um, every month or every other month to something
Mm-hmm.
to learn. And I was learning practice management as well as things about the body and stuff, some clinical things. I've got some amazing certificates from stuff all those years doing that. But one, I remember sitting there making my notes, listening to the guy lecturing, and he popped up on a screen a phone number, 1-800-570-2000. I still remember it. He said, you can run a saliva test for hormones. It's the first Monday morning. I ordered half a dozen kits, came to the office, started giving them to the patients, and then consulting with the clinical advisors at the lab. And what the hell am I looking at here?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that way in the street, so to speak, working with individuals. In other words, and what I learned was that this test result belonged to this person, Mrs. Smith, who was coming in for chiropractic, and these were her problems. And so I became an expert at clinically correlating the lab test with a person. And see, that's very diametrically opposed to what's going on in standard medicine. The person doesn't matter very much. It's the lab test. Oh, look, this number, it's high, or this number is low. We need to do something to get that down. Mm-hmm. And the person with all their problems is kind of like secondary, if you think about it. I mean, they might go in to see the doctor. I've got this and this and this and this and this. And the doctor uses, it's what I call the sounds like method. Well, it sounds like thyroid. And then they test the thyroid and find out that, oh, yeah, look, this marker needs to come down or up. And here's some medication. Take it for 3 months. Come back in the office. Now, when they come back in the office 3 months later, all the problems they're having become kind of thrown to the wayside. It's the numbers that matter. Mm-hmm. Let's get these numbers in shape. Now, this person might feel a little better, but that's not how I learned to work. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I couldn't diagnose thyroid or irritable bowel, or I saw them plenty, and our patients had those problems. But I had to say, well, I can't diagnose that thing or treat it because we're not licensed to. Found out later that's a horrible system, by the way, because it's about they're fractionating to it. So what I did instead was say, well, let's look at your hormones. Became the first test I ever ran. I ran 300 hormone tests before I ran my next test, which I just get listening and learning and with these lab guys who were very pioneer in the day. Mm-hmm. I guess I was right there with them, applying the labs that they were inventing or creating and developing. And so I was the clinical face for the lab rats, these scientists. They're not doctors either. Remember, it's just data to them, and it was just data to me, and what's going on with their digestion and their hormone balance and their immune system and detoxification pathways. And anyway, so over the years, I started adding labs and really forming this picture so that I never once gave a diagnosis. It wasn't about, oh, look, this number's low. Here, take this. See you in 3 months. Is look, there's this now after all those years, now we look at an entire constellation of markers. We call them healing opportunities, not diagnosing. This is a healing opportunity, and we have a whole constellation of them. Now, what do you need to do, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones, in between visits? You're going to maybe come in and get your test results and an explanation of what's going on with you, highly clinically correlated, that I said. These test results explain why you feel so crappy. Mm-hmm. And the person would be amazed. They'd go, well, how come no one else ever ran these labs and explained it to me this way? I don't know. It's just how I'm doing it. And so obviously that's become a common way to do things these days. But again, I was doing it way back then because I had to. I couldn't diagnose or treat. Mm-hmm. And so I meet with that person, then say, look, you got your hormones out of balance, your immune system's overactive or underactive, your digestion, you're not breaking down and assimilating food very well. None of those are diagnoses, but they're just places that this person needs to improve. Mm-hmm. And then that also forced me to figure out how are they going to fix it themselves. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, I don't know that I mentioned it, but when I was out riding my bike and figured out this is bullshit, what these people are going through, and I'm going to be the last person to see, what I really wanted was to put control of their health back in their own hands. because there I was out riding and free, and I felt completely in control for the most part. And why didn't they? Because they were giving up that control. So I put it back in their hands by saying, look, there's a way to eat that's going to correct some of these imbalances. The rest is really important. You got to, and then I studied each one of these things, like diet. How do you figure out the right one? Then rest. How do you get everyone to get a good night's sleep? And what does sleep and rest mean? Exercise, of course, goes without saying. In a huge area that I studied a lot. Again, this is all the behavior that they could be in control of to control stress reduction. And then supplementation. I have been tempted for many years to start my own supplement line and haven't done it, but I know a lot about them. So that, what I just told you, DRESS, spells dress. It's easy to remember. You go home and you follow the DRESS program: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And so over the years, that program paralleled the investigation system. And so we're figuring out what's really wrong and how do you go take control and fix it yourself so that you're not dependent on someone writing prescriptions and the other bullshit that people will hand you.
So once you kind of see that full picture, that constellation of all the different things that are going on, do you prioritize a certain aspect of the dress depending on what you see? Or is it kind of like, hey, we're going to
Yeah,
work on all of these?
we're going to work on all of them, but yes, there's priorities. I need to back up and say, when I said prescriptions and other bullshit, sometimes they're required. I mean, if you have a downward spiraling condition that's really short, like you're going to die, yeah, you better take something to get the life preserver on. So we're not talking about that here. We're talking about where there is time. There's a downward spiral, but it's protracted so that there's enough time to capitalize on the observations we make. So we make these observations about diet and rest and exercise and stress reduction, and if there's time, let's do that instead of just taking the meds and waiting for you to get worse and then doing surgery or something. So what I learned, to answer your question, is that that protracted lifestyle medicine obviously takes time. It takes time for the body to heal. And depending on the person's complaints, they may be a little more urgently trying to get rid of symptoms. In other words, they want relief care. So the first thing is relief care. Before corrective care, which is what we're mostly focused on, we want to correct it so it doesn't come back. We don't want to just take a pill. We want you to actually improve the function, the upstream function or dysfunction or imbalance. That's where we want to be. That's our background, our backyard, if you will, our playground. But relief care is important. And people come to us and they're on medication for relief care. It could be steroids for inflammation. It could be something for your hot flashes and night sweats, some hormonal preparation or something. And that's important. So someone might transition from those prescription medications to more natural substances in this relief phase, but it shouldn't take very long. And matter of fact, if they're not on any medication, they can get an equal share of relief for those hot flashes and night sweats. In other words, you can't just go into correction. It takes a while to heal. So relief care is the first phase. Then after 2-3 weeks, and I feel better. Yeah, my hot flashes went away. My migraines went away. My asthma has improved to the point where I can live a better life. It doesn't take long for relief care for the most part. Then the correction occurs. That's the lifestyle medicine. That's what we want them to follow the right diet, which we can figure out for every person. The rest, get them back into the circadian rhythm and the proper cycle. The exercise goes without saying. We won't talk much about that unless you want to. The stress reduction is huge. there's so many forms of stress. There's the mental emotional stress. There's chemical stress, biochemical stress. There's trauma, which is probably the only one that I suffer from all these years. It's injuries from sport. Pain. Pain's a stressor, and the body responds to all these stressors pretty much the same way. It doesn't care where the stress is coming from. A punch in the nose or getting yelled at by your boss. They're both stressful. The body has the same physiological response to these different stressors. So diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction is huge. And then supplementation, which is, it's not just to get rid of symptoms. You could do some relief care with it. You can really support a person's systems, their digestion, their hormones, their adrenal glands, stress organs, and you can do a lot of support, stimulation, besides just substituting for what's not in food anymore, which is also really important. And so that's the Dress for Health Success trademark program.
So I wanna touch on the first one, the diet aspect. And so you'd mentioned being able to figure out the right diet for each person. How do you go about figuring that out?
Well, thank goodness there's been pioneers long before me. You go back to the guys like Royal Lee and Weston Price and Francis Pottinger and Melvin Page, and some of these guys were great dentists and researchers and very scientific. And they're the ones who discovered, by the way, that food was creating ill health. Just there was when white bread was invented, I think it was Royal Lee said this is going to kill people. So prior to that, everyone made their own bread. You had whole bread, whole wheat, whole whatever. And say what you want about wheat, they weren't eating processed junk and calling it food, until the 20th century almost. Well, pretty much. So so it was dentists that noticed people's teeth were falling out of their heads and their health was going to shit, and it was their food. So you have to start there. And what did all these great scientists and people figure out? Well, we land. Let's just fast forward and land today on the ancestral diet, paleo ancestral health diet, which I agree with. But something I learned in between was that which one? Because it's completely different for different people. And so you take, I have this picture in one of my presentations of this beautiful, like Eskimo, must be a princess or something. She's kind of dressed fancy for an Eskimo, if you know what I'm saying. And hair beautiful, skin radiant, It's a black and white shot. You can just see the health in her eyes, and that she's perfectly healthy. Now we know that she never ate a bag of chips or a box of Cheerios or a can of anything. But we also know that she never ate, broccoli or lettuce or mangoes or pineapple or anything like that. Her diet of mostly fat and organs, like seal organs and whale fat and things like, and the very occasional small amount of sea vegetation or seasonal nuts, seeds or something, was perfect for her in her environment and her genetics. And then we turn around and we look at a Bantu tribal member from Africa, or we look at a Quechuan Indian from the Andes Mountains. Remember, you got the Eskimo here who lived at sea level with their environment. Now you got someone who's never been below 8,000 feet elevation in their life and eats almost corn and potatoes exclusively. They also have never eaten a bag of chips or a box of Cheerios. They've also never had a pineapple or these things. And they're perfectly healthy. So this ancestral diet's right for the Eskimo or whoever you're talking about, and a completely different ancestral diet. So you just can't say ancestral diet, paleo, and say that that's all, bison and, salad. It's just not true. You can't pick one. You have to find out which one's best for you. And I'll say this, even knowing your ancestors probably isn't good enough.
Okay.
because we're so mixed. You know the story, right? I mean, if this is sounding right to you, I'll just continue. 12,000 years or so ago, people started migrating all over the world. They pretty much were in their indigenous areas, the Eskimos, the Bantus in Africa, the Quechuans in South America, and that. And then all of a sudden, there's boats and there's people traveling and conquering the world and mixing their blood.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk to people all the time. What's your heritage? Oh, I did the DNA test.
Yep.
I'm 1/3 Irish, 1/4 or 20% German. I've got some Serbian or Mongolian or something else in there. So we don't know anymore what that perfect ancestral diet should look like. So with that background, I want to tell you, some people smarter than me, been doing this for 40 years, figured out what is called metabolic typing.
Okay.
So everything in that Eskimo or Quechuan Indians' metabolic processes, which is every activity going on inside the body, requires certain, and this we call them genetic requirements, certain percentages of protein, fats, and carbs. Obviously, the Eskimo, very high percentage of fat and protein, right? Genetically required. If they eat anything else, they're not going to do well. And the Quechuans, remember corn and potatoes, they have their doctors up in the mountains, the say old woman village doctor, prescribes potatoes, a different type of potato for each condition that they might come down with or have occur. So man, that's all carbohydrates, right? Starches and so each genetic type or metabolic type, let's just call it metabolic type, requires a certain percentage of protein, fats, and carbs in order to fuel their cells. You burn this fuel, so it has to be the right fuel mixture. It's based on those 3 macronutrient ratios. And when you dial this in, by the way, for people, when you dial it in, you're doing right. You're creating energy at the right rate, quality, and quantity on a cellular level. You also know that you're feeling very satiated. You have no cravings. You're not craving a bunch of crap, shoving a bunch of shit in your face, pardon my French. You're eating a meal that satisfies you. So you're completely satiated, no cravings. You're eating a meal that creates energy on a cellular level. So you feel the power and the ability to do your work or have your fun, play your games, whatever it is until the next meal. You're not going to be snacking. And you also actually have a sense of well-being about you. You feel kind of happy. And that's the natural state, to have some joy of life, to appreciate life, to maybe even have a purpose. You could add some spirituality into that, but just the right diet alone, the right percentage of protein, fats, and carbs, as dictated by our genetics, is really, really important. But it's not the only thing. What's the opposite of your macronutrients, your protein, fat, and carb ratios? It would be the micronutrients. Right. So those Bantu tribe in Africa, or the Quechuans, or you could take even your Irish Gaelic, person. You could take your Eskimo if you want. In the soils of that area that they never left for millennia, was certain vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, the trace elements, and antioxidants, and all these micronutrients were also in certain combinations and formulas, if you will. And that formula from the soils that went into the plants, and you ate the plants, or you ate the animals that ate the plants, or you ate the animals that ate the animals that ate the plants. So that micronutrient levels is also dictated by your genetics. And by that, and when they get mixed, it's a bit tough. So we have a different system we use. It's just called metabolic typing. And people could go to mtdiet.com if they were interested, and learn a little bit more about that diet. But the that's how we figure out every single client. We get them on a diet that's right for their genetics based on those elements I just gave you: macronutrient ratios and micronutrient formulas.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
Do you find that
And
adoption?
I don't know any other way to do it.
Do you find that like adoption of that diet is, or of a new diet is challenging because we don't necessarily live in a world that makes it easy to even eat whole foods?
Well, people come to us because they want to work on themselves. They're already motivated. They know that they've got tiredness, fatigue, and overweight, and aches and pains, and digestive issues, and can't sleep, and they've got a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're coming to us willing to pay us to help. And so there's an investment, and sure, some people might fly the coop, but most people are, that come to us, they're serious, and they're plunking down some change to invest in their health. So no, I don't find a lot of problems with those kind of people. I have an onboarding process that I wouldn't onboard somebody that wasn't ready, willing, and able. And so if you're ready, willing, and able, hell no. We would do a metabolic typing test. By the way, we'd also run a food sensitivity test, because metabolic typing tests can't tell you what you've acquired sensitivities to. Just that's not in your genetics. Mm-hmm. That's in just from real life. More of an adaptive thing, or it's a maladaptation. And so we do metabolic typing minus food sensitivity. Whatever you show up sensitive for, now you're cooking with gas. Now you're fueling your cells, and this is part of that relief care too. You start feeling better as soon as you start eating right for your type.
Mm-hmm.
Now you could, you have to stay hydrated and cut out alcohol for a couple months, but you can really make complete turnarounds. So no, I don't find it that hard. It sounds complicated. It's very comprehensive, but it's not complicated. It's actually quite easy to do. Macronutrient ratios, get the micronutrients in there. That's where supplements can be helpful. Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, food doesn't contain all of those vitamins and minerals anymore. The soils have been depleted. So that's why supplementation is required to substitute for what's not in the food. And there's other things you can do with supplements, but yeah, those 3 things I'll say, along with some digestive aid.
Right.
It just depends on how a person comes. But the diet, the food sensitivities testing, and some supplements it's about 20% of our protocol, but it's a huge 20%. It's 1/5. It's a lot to do. And your question was, do we find it hard for people to make these changes? It's harder for some than others. Mm-hmm. That's where coaching comes in, motivation and positive psychology, and sometimes just having a coach for accountability.
Right.
And that's more the kind of coaching I'm attracted to. being an old football coach, it's about accountability. Sometimes just good old discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not enough for some people. I'm just taking my time here. I'm hoping I'm not getting too much into the weeds.
Oh, I mean, that's what this is all about, is getting into the weeds and seeing what we find. So you said diet was kind of 20% of. Do you give? I mean, with the dress protocol, do you kind of give equal weight to each aspect of it, or do you see certain aspects carrying a little bit more weight than
Oh,
others?
well, I mean, if you think about it, they're all required.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, if I said this is DRESS, which finger do you not want to have on your hand? Like it's like you
Mm-hmm.
can't really. It's like which child, Sophie's child. You can't leave one out. But when people first come, you can't focus on 5 things at the same time. So we might start with their weakest area. I mean, you can always improve your diet, right? Come on,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes before we even get the lab results back. Remember, I require everyone to do saliva, blood, urine, and stool testing up front. Why waste our time? Let's not dink around. Let's just get the data. Let's get the lab data.
Mm-hmm.
But that might take 3 weeks. You gotta get some stool, some saliva, finger stick blood. You got some urine to collect and get into some kits and ship off. It sounds complex. It's actually pretty easy to do. My mom, who's 92, did it when she was in her mid 80s. So I know people can get a box and put some saliva in some tubes and send it off. Which, by the way, it's very convenient. It's not expensive. You do it in the comfort of your own home, so to speak. So while you're waiting for those lab test results to come back, you could get started immediately on the diet, because that test result, you go online, you take our test, you got your results in 2 days, and we could start coaching up on the diet. You start already sort of getting some lifestyle changes in, hydration. And so, other than that, we would start with their weakest area. If it's sleep and sleep's their main complaint, then so diet, rest, the R comes in really, really big. But if they don't exercise, hey, you start walking around the block,
Mm-hmm.
park farther away from the entrance to the store, which I do all the time. I like go take the last space. First of all, I know no one's going to ding my car up,
Right.
and then I get a little bit of a walk in, So diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction is huge. So it depends on the person. This is where individuality, which I started out talking about, individualness, individuality is really critical. So where's a person the weakest? And it could be some stressor. Um, some of those are harder than others. It could involve your profession. I had an airline pilot once who realized finally that he was a captain he flew passenger planes for Delta. I mean, a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress, a lot of things going on. But one of the stressors was the amount of diesel fuel and jet fuel and flame retardants that he was sucking up. And we tested him for environmental pollutants and came up with all this stuff. He's drinking out of plastic cups. He's sucking up the amount of flame retardant they put in planes is incredible. They're just dosed in it, and then the jet fuel and stuff like that. So stress reduction.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about stress. That's a major environmental stressor. How are you going to change his job overnight? You can't. Some things would take time. Whereas if it's just a food sensitivity stressing you, that's easy. Test. Don't eat that anymore. Boom. You just eliminated major stressors to your system. And so some stressors are easier to remove than others. A lot of hairdressers, just people around environmental contaminants and everything. As you know from other guests you've had, there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
ubiquitous. It's
yeah.
everywhere. It's in all shapes and forms. And so, to answer your question, which was where do you start in the dress program? We usually start with diet because we're waiting for test results. And once we get the test results in, now we know about your hormone imbalances, your immune system understimulated. Your digestion, or you're breaking down and absorbing food, your detoxification systems. What if your liver's congested?
Mm-hmm.
We might start dialing that in a little bit with other lifestyle things, plus some supplements, and there's some therapies and stuff you can do that's all included in our protocols. So we do diet until we get and maybe some stress reduction. If it's arguing with your spouse over money, cut that out. I'm kidding. There's just so many, but
Right.
we keep it on track. Keep it on track. You at least have a system. You've got a grounding program. All you got to do is work it, and it absolutely works. It absolutely outperforms any other system I've ever looked at in 23 years.
So, I mean, really, FDN then is a culmination of the years of call it clinical experience that you had, and the thousands of patients that went through your came through your doors. And so, was it really just kind of collecting all that information and putting the protocols together, and then making it into a usable form for someone else to be able to go and implement?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, I started out not knowing very much. Again, I've read some books, and I had this book. I was going to show it to you if it was handy. I keep it around. I read it when I was 19. It was called Healing Ourselves by Noboru Muramoto. Some Japanese guy came to California back in the 70s, or late 60s, and worked in a clinic for a while, and they wrote this book on everything he taught them. I got a copy of that book. I bought it at we didn't even have health food stores back then. It was a food co-op.
Mm-hmm.
Where I buy whole grain, and you get to dish it into a bag and weigh it and pay for it. That's really old fashioned pre-vitamin shop, So I had that on my desk and coffee table for 30 years before I started this kind of work. But so I knew that we needed to take responsibility and work on ourselves. But so your question, I think, was where do you start? Or
I mean, well, we're looking at the certification,
how it
right?
fit.
Like, yeah, you took all this information, put it together. Has the certification kind of evolved now as you've brought more people through it, and what are coaches
Okay,
needing?
yeah.
And
Yeah, thanks for that. I get lost in these stories sometimes.
it's all good.
Um, they're fun to recall, and I find it amazing how this happened to me. I didn't plan to be in the spot I'm in right now. I'm kind of the leader of this large group of people who they're following what I taught them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the clinic, all I cared about was how can I improve myself and the services I was offering. So everything that I now teach in the FDN certification course, I did, day in and day out and day in, day out, and tweaked and modified and learned more and adjusted it. And so when it took almost 10 years of that to develop the HIDDEN investigation. So that's the acronym I use for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. So my investigation, and just to answer your question, yeah, it took years to learn, and also to put it in a usable form that anyone could do. It's easy if you're an alternative doctor and you got access to all these labs and things. But even then, if you haven't done it for years and learned a system,
Mm-hmm.
you could get lost. But I had the tools, the investigative tools and mindset, that I never ever wanted to diagnose and treat a specific thing. I wanted to just know what's wrong with people, because that's not practicing medicine. You don't want to do that unless you're licensed to do that. So it was just to help our clients in the clinic, a small clinic in Southern California, in a nice suburb. I was raising my kid and working my ass off at that clinic. I mean, sometimes 7 days a week. And again, just for our business, to make our business grow and be kind of well known, establish our reputation for all those years. So not only did that investigative system finally culminate in HIDDEN, because I wanted it organized and easy to remember and explain to people. And so did simultaneously the what to do about it. What are the lifestyle things, epigenetics we call it? What are the epigenetic factors that have to be in place? That's where DRESS came from. And then finally, I told you I was talking to this lab director, said, "Who the hell are you, and how do you run so many labs?" Like he ended it with, "Whatever you're doing, you ought to be teaching other practitioners." And he put that bug in my ear. And then, I was out lecturing, and I had people from the audience come up. One little lady comes up, "You should be teaching the doctors," and I finally put a 2-day workshop together, and I taught HIDDEN and DRESS in 2 days, standing in front of 200 slides. That was the first FDN course. And I had to also come up with the name FDN. I could tell you how I came up with that, but it was kind of willy-nilly. And it made sense at the time. Now we're just kind of stuck with it. But I taught the first FDN course in 2 days in 2008. And yeah, it blew up. People wanted more. People wanted more. They would tell me more. Tell me more. How do I do this? How do I do that? So I interviewed, Trevor, the first 2,000 graduates. Asked each one. I interviewed them. I gave every one of them an appointment for half an hour. We booked. I called them like a clock and hey, how do you like the course? What are you going to do with the training? How are you going to apply it in your own business? Are you going to start a business? Are you going to whatever? And then what could I do better? What else would you have liked me to talk? So now the course is 8 months. It takes, at least 6, if not 8 months. It's a rolling start. Anyone can sign up. You just want to work on your own health. The only thing I ask is you would consider helping others. Like if I had a prerequisite, I'd have 2. One is, do you enjoy helping others, or would you like to help others? Do you have a passion for helping others? Is that what you live for, maybe? It's what I live for. And then are you willing to walk the talk? Because you've got to do all this work on yourself. Every student of mine now runs the labs. It's part of your tuition. You're going to run the labs on yourself. 6 tests, and you're going to get counseling and mentoring. And 2008 is a long time ago. We've evolved tremendously. I have a staff of 30 people, that help teach it and mentor. And then we have our postgrad. Oh my God, the postgrad program. I have 600 now. 600 members of our alumni group who are professional. We call it the Association of FDN Professionals. So a lot of people take the course and they kind of bugger off. God bless them. I hope they're applying all the principles they learn. But I have 600 members of the dues-paying members of the alumni group. We stay connected as a community. We learn together. There's lots of peer support. So anyway, that's another chapter. And that also was the response to interviewing every graduate. What could I do to make it better? Mm-hmm. Hey, postgrad support, man. Come up with a program. And we did it free for years. And then I realized it was costing a lot of money. And we now charge really teeny tiny little dues just to cover our costs.
Right.
And it's all online. The platforms have changed. It's amazing. Thank God for people smarter than me. That's what I'll say. It helps.
That's the secret to a good business, right? Surround yourself with a whole bunch of smart people.
Motivated. They're all mission driven, and I pay them pretty well, but they're mission driven. They want to help others too, and they all are walking their own talk. We're all on different levels. I wouldn't say anyone's perfectly healthy, but we're all on the mission, right?
So what type of coaches do you see enrolling in FDN? And has it changed since the beginning? Was there kind of a certain group of people that really was attracted to this early on and it's evolved since then? Or has it kind of been the same mix of people throughout?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've always had a mix of, I'll just call them lay practitioners. Okay. So for the most part, they weren't doctors or or licensed professionals at first. Matter of fact, in the first course ever, none. In the next 2 or 3 cohorts, very few. Just on referrals, we got a few chiropractors and acupuncturists. But now, since it's become pretty well, we're kind of known. There's doctors who either go through it themselves or they put their staff through it. So at first it was just all sort of your alternative, anybody who's a nutritionist, personal trainer. We had massage therapists and just do-gooders, people who like helping others. They wanted to learn the science. They wanted to learn the lab work. I think that's still our main attractive features. They want to learn the lab work. And the way I teach it, it's thorough. It's the anatomy, the physiology, the biochemistry. I have a strength for digging into that and making it easy to understand. And so it's anybody, answer your question, is any lay practitioner or now even licensed practitioner who just wants to learn what's really wrong and help people fix it. Because and physicians, we've had them take our course and give up their license. They like doing FDN better, but their current licensure prevents them from doing it. They have to follow very specific algorithms that are within their scope of practice and within the treatment protocols that they are bound to by, again, the standard of care, or even just because they work for insurance companies, really.
Right.
That's who most doctors work for. They're working for the payor, which is, Aetna and Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and all these. That's who the payer is. And so that's the boss. And it's not the client. It's not the patient. That's the sad, sad thing. That's what we're sort of up against, if you will.
Right. So, with that being, if you didn't get the chance to really explain what you're doing, a lot of people would probably think you're associated with the medical field because you're helping people that aren't well. And so, from a legal standpoint, have you had any troubles, or have you had to kind of fight anything, or have there been any stories from a legal standpoint where you've really had to say, this is what we're about and we're not doing this?
The answer is no, but there's a reason for it. It's because, number one, I came from a legal background, not a lawyer, but a paralegal. I understand the law really well. I know how to read it and interpret it and research it. And so there's that. And from day one, my mentors were doctors who really taught me where the lines are drawn and never to cross them. And matter of fact, Dr. Bailey, he was such a magnificent person. He was so kind and so gentle and so I was kind of his alter ego. No one had done what I was doing, and he wanted to see could you be successful, and he really believed that it could be more successful than what he was bound to. So he had all the rules. I can't do that, Reed. I can't do that, Reed. I can't do that, Reed. But he also would say, Reed, you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do this. So what can you do that's going to be effective? And so I've never crossed a line. There is a legal line to cross. The minute you diagnose and treat, you're practicing medicine without a license. If you don't have a license, don't do that. But the other thing to realize is, well, why does that need a license? Why do you need a license to practice medicine? Because it's dangerous. You need a license to drive a car or fly a plane or do a lot of things. And practicing medicine, it's good to restrict and regulate drugs and surgery that can and will and does kill people. You're licensed to kill when you have a doctor's license. You can prescribe a medication that they end up dying from, and you're pretty much, as long as you followed the rules, you're scot-free. And so who wants that, really? 200, a minimum, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, a minimum of 250,000 people die every year from medical mistakes. I've seen other estimates that go up to almost 500,000. Now, just think if that happened in nutrition. You think there'd be any nutrition counseling or nutritionists around if we killed even one person? Yet, so these licensed practitioners get to kill 250,000 people a year, and there's no consequences. It's just more of the same and more of the same. And I'm sure that number's going up, not down. So in the beginning, to answer your question about legalities, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to take any chances and get into the diagnosis and treatment? That does, first of all, everyone walking in their office had already been to 5 or 8 or 10 of those practitioners, didn't get any help because they didn't have a medication deficiency that needed correcting. If you have headaches, it's not from an aspirin deficiency, or if you have sleeplessness, it's not from an Ambien shortage in your cabinet. It's something else. And so that something else is what I've pursued diligently, religiously, loyally, faithfully, and never crossing the boundaries. So the answer to your question is no. If someone has challenged anyone in my tribe, if you will, it'd be for anti-competitive, it'd be jealousy and anti-competition. And they would accuse us of doing something we're not doing because they think, or they might perceive that we're pissing in their backyard when really we're not. We want nothing to do with their backyard. You keep that. You have a complete monopoly on medical diagnosis and treatment. We don't want any parts of it. We just want to know what's really wrong so we can help people fix it.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So, I mean, is your ultimate goal then is just to kind of build this tribe that's big enough that then kind of maybe influences this other industry? Or is there a piece of you that wants to help change kind of the traditional medical industry as well?
No, the traditional medical industry is fine the way it is if it's used appropriately. It's for urgent and attendant sort of heroic care. That's what it's there for. If I get a snake bite, because I live in Southern California and I have acres of property, I go and I do all my landscaping. Man, we get snakes, like big ass rattlesnakes this big around.
Right.
If I get bit by one, do you think I'm going to call a nutritionist or a health coach or anything except for emergency attendant, heroic American Medical Association trained person to give me the antivenom that I need? That's what you got to do. Same thing with you're driving downtown and you're the victim of a drive-by shooting. You're not going to call your health coach. Same thing with if you get off a plane from West Africa and your temperature's 105 and you're bleeding from your eyeballs, you're not going to call your health coach. So no, I don't want to change anything. I want them to keep doing what they do because they're the best at it. They're the best. They have the unlimited funding, for their equipment and their materials and things that they do miraculous work with. And oh, by the way, I said I'd never been to a doctor when I started, but things start to add up. So now I'm going for stem cell treatment, platelet-rich plasma, prolotherapy and things. Only a license. I wouldn't let anyone else touch me that wasn't licensed in that wasn't fully trained and certified and all these things. They're injecting stuff into your neck. I've had stem cells in my neck 3 times, both shoulders, my left knee, and my mid back. And believe me, He's a super well trained, highly qualified. I've been to 3 different people, but they're all really good doctors, regular doctors that specialize in pain and in regenerative medicine. And so I don't want to change any of that. I think it's wonderful the way it is. What's wrong is that people go there for problems that they can't fix. And so, and that, remember, it all started with, I've been to 5 doctors, 8 doctors, 10 doctors, plus a few quacks and, weirdos, and still aren't better yet. And so I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be one of the quacks or weirdos. So I used a very scientific approach to find out what's really wrong and help that person fix it themselves using the innate intelligence of the body and on and on and on. I think you know the whole rap, but no one's ever accused of us of anything unless they were just wrong, that misunderstood, thought we were a pain in their backyard, and we're not. And if we killed one person, we'd be shut down. They get to kill 1 million people and nothing happens because it's part of, that's the way the chips fall, in their profession.
Are you seeing the industries working more symbiotically, and maybe health coaches and nutritionists playing a bigger role in those kind of chronic type conditions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, because I do this every day and I think about things a lot and research, and I'm on everyone's list. And, so I see what's developing in the health coaching field. And it's not a bad thing, but the term itself is being kind of appropriated by the American Medical Association and their cohorts. The whole sort of standard medicine has seen that, first of all, they had to deal with alternative medicine, then complementary, where they're trying to work together, then integrative, where they're actually working together. And yet their whole approach is kind of wrong. And so the health coaches that are going to go work for doctors need to make sure that doctor is on the same page with their methodology and frame of reference, point of view, mindset, whatever, that we want to know what's really wrong with them. So a lot of physicians, that's not their backyard. It's not their playground. They're not concerned. What they're there for is to relieve symptoms. So if it's like, here, take this, you'll feel better, they're going to continue to do that. And so I see health coaching splitting, actually. Either, like, we're not really health coaches. FDN is a form of practice. We're practitioners with health coaching skills. And a lot of people who are health coaches, they have these skills in how to get people to adopt new behaviors, replace bad habits with good ones, set and pursue goals, and really cool stuff about improving life and quality of life. But if the only input that person's getting, in other words, the only orders the health coach is following is what some doctor said about, you're diabetic, or then they're really just, the health coach would be sort of backing up a failing system, a system that doesn't provide the answers that people are looking for. So I may not be saying all this quite right, but I have thought about it a lot and still rolling around. That the only study being done on health coaching right now, at least a month ago when I last looked, the only study being done in health coaching by the NIH is whether health coaches are helping people with irritable bowel disease take their medication more compliantly. Are they more compliant in taking medication? Well, if that's all health coaches get to do, there's none of my people who want that job. There's no one in my tribe that wants that job. Just helping Mrs. Smith take your medicine now, and even if you do apply other good life coaching skills to it and build on it, that's not the game that we're in. That's not the backyard that we want to be. So what I see is sort of this institutional takeover of a certain branch of health coaching. You could call them institutional health coaches if you want. They work within that system. They're happy doing that. They're helping people on that level. And if they're happy, I'm happy. But there's what I would call the independent health coaches then, like the people we train, they're entrepreneurs too. They're able to set up their own health coaching businesses, live the lifestyle they want, make the kind of money they want, work the hours they want, work from wherever they want in the world. We don't have geographical boundaries. We can work with our clients anywhere, anytime, any place. Long as you can get those lab test kits to them. And remember, these are all basically RUO tests, research use only type things. There's no diagnosis in these tests, so they can be shipped anywhere. If you can get it back to the lab, we can help you with an explanation. How does this lab work? Explain what's going on with you, and then what can you do about it lifestyle-wise. It's really lifestyle coaching. That's the independent branch of health coaching. And even with that said, FDNs are practitioners in their own right. We're practicing a methodology. And again, there can be medical oversight. We're happy to play the junior partner if they have a true medical condition. Hey, we'll just coach them up on a holistic grounding program. We'll still do our labs. We'll figure out our stuff. And we're going to just, overall that person's going to get much healthier. And guess what we end up seeing? Their medical condition goes away. And we don't care who gets credit for it. If that doctor wants to say, oh, good, I helped you, and they're off their meds and now they're happy, hey, we're all happy. There's no territory disputes from our side, that sort of naturopathic side, if you will. So your answer to your question about health coaching and where's it going? How do I look at it? I'll just tell you this. I've created a branch for our students because we're not certifiable by the main sort of standard medicine certifying body. And I don't want to mention what it is. So I hired teachers that were authorized by them to teach my people a coaching method that would make those people eligible for board examination, eligible for the board.
Right.
Well, we couldn't get very many people to sign up for it. They didn't want that. My people didn't want that eligibility. They didn't really care about it. What do I want to be certified by them for? So what? So I can go work for some doctor for $20 an hour and help people take medication? They weren't interested. But I did it anyway because I wanted that feather in my cap. And I took it myself. I went through the whole thing. I showed up for everything. I did the 50 case studies. I mean, it was a shit ton of work. Mm-hmm. And 13 of us went through. 4 of them worked for me. And the rest were just graduates who signed on. And we went through that whole cohort. And we were going to offer it again, a second cohort. And we couldn't get enough people to sign up for it. There was just no interest from my group. They don't want those jobs. It just isn't of interest. So in the meantime, I still went and took my board exam. I took my board exam about 2 weeks ago. It was 2-hour sessions with a 15-minute break, very high security. You got to go to a location. You sign in, you sign out if you have to take a pee or whatever, And I literally fell asleep in the first 2-hour session. It was every question was multiple choice. Every question was, the health coach is working in a community center and the doctor told the client that they're pre-diabetic, so they need to do this and that. And it's just like, I'm telling you, I literally fell asleep, and I don't want the certification because I don't want that board breathing down my neck and telling me what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. So I'm just going to leave it at that and say that that's institutional health coaching, and God bless them if they're happy. Mm-hmm. Getting the client to follow the doctor's orders, then that's good with me. If they're happy doing that and that client's happy, or this their client, and if they're all happy, I'm happy too. But we don't do that. We're not just going to. What does your doctor tell you to do? You can't initiate protocol for that person that you're trying to help. it's like having handcuffs on, and I don't want that. So I don't know if I pass. It takes 2 months um, to get your pass fail. But if I passed, and I'm not certain I did, some of it was a bunch of gobbledygook, and I probably didn't study well enough. but but I'm going to pass on the certification if they give it to me. I would say no, that's all right. I don't want that anymore. I don't know if I took too long with that one, Trevor, but that's the truth, man. That's the bare naked inside scoop.
Reed, you're going to be all over the internet. Reed Davis doesn't pass board certified test.
Hey, if I fail, mission accomplished. We did everything we set out to do. I hope I pass, but I'm not going to take the designation,
right,
or credential.
And so, really, what sets FDN apart is this blood. I should say it's just blood work, because it's not just blood work. It's saliva, it's stool, it's kind of all of these kind of like bodily functions. And so that's really because you're basing what you're doing on that data, not just looking at someone or a health intake or something like that.
It's all data driven, but a lot of the data does come from the person. Mm-hmm. So we developed and I got the help of, matter of fact, one of my mentors. I'll just drop his name. It's Bill Wolcott. I think he'd be a good guest for you.
Okay.
He's the master of metabolic typing. I mean, he can just tell you everything inside out and backwards. I'm a metabolic typing practitioner. He's the founder of that group. And I learned a lot from him. And we put together some custom forms that I've updated and that have evolved. But we did that 15 years ago, intake forms based on the lab work. What are we going to find in the lab work? And it's amazing, the correlation. So we have people fill out, we call it the metabolic chaos scorecard. Mm-hmm. So you've got metabolic chaos. That's what's really wrong with you. We're not diagnosing one thing. We're going to fix every cell, tissue, organ, and system in your body. Our one concern is this chaos, metabolic chaos. And so we sort it out. We sort it out into its various areas of concern. The hormones, the immune system, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system balance, autonomic balance. And so we get a score. The person answers, it goes through the whole thing, takes 20 minutes to go through and fill this thing out, maybe half an hour. But it's worth it, because now we know where we're starting. And we run the labs at the same time. What labs? Exact same 6 areas: hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system. We run so now we've got both what they say, and not only that, we have a lifestyle and medical history form. Lifestyle and medical. We know what they've been eating. We know what time to go to bed. We know, how much exercise they do. All this stuff. We know their medical history, if they ever had a heart attack or AIDS or whatever the heck it is, pregnancies and things. So we know a lot about a person before we run their labs, but we can't just go by what they fill out and tell us. What am I going to say? Go diet and exercise? That's insane. Everyone already told them that shit. So we run the labs, the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification. We look at blood, saliva, urine, stool, and we look at food sensitivities, and there's optional stuff they can do too. But we get our basic data. Now we see what the correlation is. Oh, wow. Look, your hormones are out of balance. That explains all of these symptoms. Your digestive system isn't working good. That explains all these. So you really are working with the person and the data, and it correlates. And that's why people love it so much. That's why the health, the public, our clients go, oh my God, no one's ever looked at me this way, and no one's ever explained it to me before. They just run a test and tell me something's high and I got to take this pill. And we just don't work that way. So you get the point.
So you have a lot of practitioners that are doing this, ordering tests, getting data. Do you guys have a general database that all of this is going into to be able to kind of aggregate even more data?
Yeah. That's such an amazing question, because people ask me for do I have my data, the research, all this stuff. You know what we did back then? We did case notes. Everything was on paper. If it wasn't
Right.
written down, it didn't happen. They were in a yellow file folder that went up on the wall. Well, nowadays it's all electronic records.
Right.
And those records, by the way, I had to destroy when I left that office. Eventually, with the HIPAA laws, I shredded everything. And I didn't keep really good records. But now we do. So nowadays with the modern stuff, remember, I have to say this, Trevor, I built that huge practice from the busiest nutritionists probably on the planet, but certainly in this country, with a pager and a fax machine. That was modern tech to me back then. And cell phones weren't invented. And so nowadays, imagine what you could do with all of the internet and everything. And we're doing it. So we've engaged a company called Biocanic to track everything. They track every result. There's no names, it's all HIPAA compliant, blah, 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 stuff like that. But all of the intake forms with all of the lab results, we are correlating. We're a ways away from having it anywhere close to you just enter all the data and here's what you should do. We still need the lab data. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely. We're correlating all of it, tracking every single test results, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of labs every single month. And it's all going in. I don't know what's going to come out. I just don't know, but it's I could certainly take a good stab at it, but people don't want my opinion.
Right.
They want to see the data. So we're dissecting that. We're collecting and correlating and everything we need to be doing.
Right. I mean, it's part of the scientific process, right? You have a hypothesis, you collect the data, and then you let the data tell you.
Yeah. I'll just say about those older days working in the clinic, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody. I was just trying to help the people walking in the door. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the awareness of how important that was at the time. What that turned into, I wish I knew then what I know now, but that's the way it is.
Can't do anything about it at this point, so there's no use in.
I got pictures. I got stories of happy people. I mean, right. The turnarounds in people's lives, and they're 100% true, and they're remarkable. They sometimes look like overnight people miraculously recovered from serious downward spiraling conditions. I could tell you story after story if you want.
We might have to do a part 2 for that, but if you're talking to a new coach, someone that's really interested in this, FDN might be a good step for them, but maybe they're not that far along yet. They're just really getting interested and they want to kind of test out this health coaching industry. Are there any books or are there any resources that you feel like are accessible to anyone that would really help them with that first step of figuring out, is this something that's right for me?
Yeah. There's a book called The Chronic Stress Crisis.
Okay.
It's by Bill Timmons. The Chronic Stress Crisis. These books are stacked up all around me. There's so many. I have to mention The Metabolic Typing Diet by William Wolcott. The Metabolic Typing Diet. That would be the first one. There's a book. I just finished Drop Acid by Perlmutter, Dr. David Perlmutter, Drop Acid. We're actually going to add uric acid to some of our small panels. I've worked with the lab in Canada now for a while, and they're developing labs according to my need. What I say I want to look at, again, not to diagnose, but to just what's really wrong going on. And they have modified, like there's labs that only FDNs run. No one else is running them. And we're adding that uric acid from that book. So Perlmutter's, I just read that, but 20 years ago I read Why Stomach Acid is Good for You. Matter of fact, looks like this.
Okay.
This book, probably 30 years old, by Jonathan Wright. Jonathan Wright was one of the true pioneers. Another guy whose newsletter I was getting 20 years ago. phenomenal stuff, really smart guy. And my medical director, my first original medical director, who was how we get the labs done all over the place, was an intern, or he did his residency with Jonathan Wright. So I had really good, blessed with very, very superior mentors. But the other strength of FDN is I ran my own labs and I made my own observations too from that lay perspective. So that's no one else ran 10,000 labs from sitting from where I was sitting at that time. And so that's 3 or 4 books for you. Yeah, read anything by Weston Price, Francis Pottinger. I mean, his classic Pottinger's Cats. It's really a remarkable little book. You could read it in an afternoon, a couple hours probably, and lots of others.
And so I guess if that kind of information, maybe reading some of those books really fires someone up, then that's probably a good indication that, hey, maybe this is something I can really get into and change my little piece of the world.
Well, those are some books. Like I said, you start with the desire to help other people and the willingness to walk the talk. So, funny thing I found out during those post-grad interviews, almost everybody had a problem of their own that they wanted to solve, that they were able to solve in the 6 or 8 months that it took to finish the course. Remember, you have to walk the talk. We call it the Walk the Talk program. It's part of the training. You're going to get these labs. You're going to do them on yourself. You're going to go through the results with a mentor, and you're going to fill out all the forms just like a client would, and do the whole thing. That alone is worth the price of admission. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're going to learn a profession and a one that's where you could make very good money working for yourself or go get a job, is pretty remarkable. And almost everybody had their own health problem. So that becomes their niche. So as you come out of, when you're in business, they say you ought to have a niche. If you talk to any marketing person, what's your niche? Niche down further, and all that stuff. And I can't argue with that as far as business management goes. You kind of have to. And almost every FDN, if they overcame their thyroid problems, they kind of niche into thyroid. If it was digestion and diarrhea, they go that way. If it was hormones and PCOS, and they kind of go that way with their niche. Mm-hmm. But they're actually qualified. I would say they're no more qualified for that niche than they are any other niche, but for the personal attachment they have to it. They're right. Just personally connected. But we don't teach diagnosis and treatment of any one thing. Mm-hmm. So you're able to help anyone with any problem. It's because, remember, it's a grounding program.
So what's next for FDN? I mean, what are your big goals for FDN? Is it to try and get as many people through the certification and get more coaches out there, or do you have other plans?
Well, I'd love to say something like, we want it to be a household name. We want a little jingle of our own that you hear on the radio. I haven't gone there yet. My original goal, remember, I just had a clinic for 10 years, was to educate as many people as possible how to get well and stay well naturally, so that they in turn could educate others. It was just to educate those patients coming in with their sad eyes and their thing. Well, let's look at what's really wrong here and educate them on the power that they had over their own bodies, and that if they would get the right data and the right point of view, they could take control. That mission has never changed. Mm-hmm. I started teaching because I realized that, wow, I could, if I just taught one person, could help twice as many people as I could person. If I train 10 people, that's 10 times as many people are going to help. We've now trained 4,000 people. That's 4,000 times the number, potentially, that I could do by myself in a clinic. Mm-hmm. And now that we don't even have to have a clinic, none of us have brick and mortar hardly anymore. Unless you're a chiropractor, some modality, you need to see the person. Doctors obviously have offices. But it's all can be done remotely. We pioneered the remote or distance coaching model 20 years ago. People didn't have to come in my office. I could mail them a big, thick package of test results and graphics and diagram, all the stuff we do online now. I would mail it out in a big, 9x11 envelope, and we'd go over it on the phone. I had, duplicate copy on my desk, and I would have their husbands or spouse listen on the back line. And everybody had landlines back then. It's just, well, yeah, tell your husband I'm gonna call you at 6:30, 7:00, whatever, and I want your husband listening on the other line. You can just listen, and it's amazing the results we got. So we pioneered that. So I see that model is going to explode. Doctors now are getting into telemedicine. Hell, I'm an older guy, right? So I've got Medicare. And when I wanted to talk to my doctor about something, just standard, you got to go for your checkup anyway. They make you. And her follow-up visit was on Zoom. Really funny. So they're all doing it now. The laws are loosening up. And I see it being people being able to access their health coach from any computer or phone or little message pad thing, iPads. I got 2 of them. I don't really use them. Remember, I'm a pager and fax machine guy.
Right.
Matter of fact, I miss my BlackBerry. I really did. I kind of got into that, and I miss it.
They didn't
and
quite
meanwhile,
have.
you can hear.
They didn't have the vision that Steve Jobs did, I guess, and they kind of went the opposite way.
Yeah, they went into the landfill, man. So we want something else to go into the landfill. We're just not going to say what it is. We want to have people take control of their own health. That's what I want. You know what it is? And I don't want to get spooky, but it's about freedom, man. It's about freedom. Health freedom is, you could say, where freedom begins. If you don't have your health, you have shit.
Right.
You got to have your health. And if you start with that, your freedom to make your own decisions about what goes in your body and just that whole thing, you can behave. Well, that could lead to emotional freedom. Now you're happier. No one else is controlling you. So health freedom, emotional freedom, which, by the way, applies to the practitioner in a big way. What kind of emotional freedom is it when you have to tell a patient something that you don't believe, that you know is not going to help them? And that goes on. That goes on every single day in American doctors' offices. The doctor knows what this person needs to do, but all they can say is, here's your prescription. And it might not even be the one they want to write, because of the way insurance company algorithms work. They have to write this prescription first, and then it has to fail. It didn't work. Then they can write that next one that's a little more expensive, one they wanted to write in the first place. That goes on every single day. And it might be that that's not even the one. It's the third one that they want to get to, that they have to also, the insurance algorithm is first you have to prescribe this one. And if it fit, have them come back in 60 days. If it's not working, try this one. If that's not working, in another 60 days. Well, you're looking at maybe 6 months down the road before they get on the medication that you wanted to write them in the first place. That's worse than handcuffs. That's jail. And there can't be any emotional freedom for that physician. They might be making lots of money, but that's not the answer, Although financial freedom is another freedom that's very, very important. I would consider emotional freedom, health freedom. Another one we talk about is geographical freedom. Doctors can't work across state lines. They have to have I had a guy I wanted to see. I just wanted to see him. Got to know him at a Mindshare meeting. And I flew to Connecticut from California. I stayed the night in a hotel, went to his office. I just want to experience his office. He's got, functional alternative stuff going on, things on your head, and you get in this chamber. And I just wanted to try it all. But he couldn't, he now can talk to me across state lines, but prior to that, he couldn't. And we're not bound by that. And if the end, we can work with anyone, anywhere. Mm-hmm. So geographical freedom, financial freedom, health freedom, emotional freedom, time freedom. I work my own hours. My health coaches work their own hours. I work from 4 a.m. until about noon or 1 o'clock every day. So that means I have every afternoon to do whatever the hell I like, because I'm willing to go to bed early, get up early, get my work done. I can ride my motorcycle. I can work in my garden, which I do. My wife's always making fun of me because I like to go out on my tractor more than anything. I like it just about almost as much as my motorcycle.
That's awesome.
And so time freedom also is critical. But if you don't start with delivering health freedom, and that's the answer to your question is where's it going? Freedom. It's like free to choose, free to be in control of your own health and your own destiny.
I love it, Reed. It's awesome. Well, to kind of close things up today, I've got a few more lighthearted questions, kind of rapid fire questions I want to throw at you. So hopefully you didn't prepare too much.
Scared.
All right, these are easy. All right, so if you had to choose taco, burrito, or quesadilla, which one do you choose?
Oh, it depends what I'm drinking, I guess, but you can pack a lot into a burrito. You can pack a lot of protein into a burrito, I think, more than the others.
All right, I like it. All right, if you had one restaurant and one restaurant only that you could eat at for the rest of your life, what restaurant do you choose?
Oh, geez, again, depends what I'm drinking. It's going to be either sushi, but you kind of get tired of sushi. I love good sushi. I love trying new things. But we have a farm to table,
Okay.
a couple around here. We jump on the bike. We go for breakfast. We go for lunch. We go to another one for dinner. So farm to table is the way to go.
Okay, I like it. All right, anything that you have purchased for $100 or less that has had profound impact on your life or delivered just an insanely amount of value?
I mean, so many things. I mean, for some of the significant stuff, you've got to spend more than that. But blue blockers, man.
Okay.
If you have to work in the day and at night, wear your blue blockers. You got to defend yourself from the blue light because it will screw with your circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stay balanced, like early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. You've gotta wear your blue blockers, and you can buy them cheap.
Right. All right.
You don't have to spend a lot of money.
Right. All right. Next one. What cartoon world do you wish you could live in for a week? What cartoon world?
I really don't watch cartoons. I don't know anything about cartoons. So last time I watched cartoons was probably, The Simpsons or something.
Okay. All right.
20 years ago. So I'd like to live in Homer, Springfield, Illinois, or wherever it was, and take over the town. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I like it. All right. I got two more. If you were reincarnated as an animal based on your personality, what do you come back as?
Well, probably I'd say lion.
Okay.
I'm definitely a lion. I always willing to fight if you need to fight, or whatever else you might need to be to bring home the bacon. Or I guess with lions, it's actually the females that do most of the hunting.
You can come back as a female lion. That's okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Well, so, I like kind of being it's good to be the boss.
Uh-huh.
I walk around my property with a sense of pride and care and a lot of love and things. I don't know, maybe if I thought about it more, but lion's good enough for me for right now.
All right. Last one.
I have a cane.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's right. Right. I like it. If you could have dinner with anyone on the planet, past or present, who do you go to dinner with?
I'm not going to say some spooky religious thing, although it occurs to me that maybe that would be cool. Hey, I just read a book on George Washington. I sure would like to meet that guy, man. I mean, the stuff he did young and, way before he, won the war against the British and became president. I mean, I don't know. Some of these founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin's doctor, had some really wise things to say. He's actually a signer of the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution, but he had a lot of suggestions for the Constitution. He wanted medical freedom to be added and he predicted exactly what's going on today. I'm trying to remember his name. George Washington's doctor. His name was Benjamin or Dr. Benjamin something. Phenomenal story and guy. I don't know. Lots of people like that. I probably have some great grandfather I'd like to meet too. Something personal like that.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, Reed, it's been a lot of fun.
Hey man, I'm glad to be here. I thought we were just getting started.
We'll have to do a part 2 at some point. But this is
we're not done yet, and
you got a motorcycle to ride and a guard to take care of.
Actually, right now, I've got to go to. I'm doing some training, just kind of a leadership thing. I do want to be I want to leave my company to the employees. Right now, we have about 33 or 35 employees. The company's doing very well. I want to leave a legacy, and so I'm going to go do a class right now in about 15 minutes or so on that. Like, how do I accomplish that? I need to learn more about that part of life, and I got plenty of good, joyful years left, and I want to make sure my work continues. But I just don't want to have to do all of it.
I like it, Reed. It's been fun.
So thank you. I love to hear. I hope the audience picks up a tip or two. That's all I ever hope for. Thank you.
There's been plenty of nuggets, Reed. We appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.